Hello, today is the 25th of February 2025 and we are on our way to Gomera. Gomera is the third smallest of the Canary Islands and you reach it on this ferry. It takes about 15 minutes from Los Cristianos, which is behind me, the island's Tenerife. The island is famous for its mountainous terrain, on account of its volcanic origins, and also for its Garajonay National Park. At the top of the island is a natural rainforest. It's supposed to be a hiker's paradise, and we're going to be exploring that over the next 8 days. And in this video we'll bring you our experiences and some useful hints and tips if you're thinking of going there yourself. Hope you enjoy. At the end of this video we'll list our top 10 must-do activities on Gomera based on our experience and research. Hello, we are Dave and Kim, a married couple from North Yorkshire in the UK. We left our jobs to focus on what we love, exploring nature and the globe through hiking, biking and travel. Back down. As adventurous walrus, we share videos about places we've been and the experiences we've had to inform and inspire your travel. The ferry journey passed comfortably enough, and before long we were arriving in San Sebastian, the port and main town of Gomera. Kim was doing the double backpack on the way off, and we were soon on our way, having elected to hire a car for the duration of our trip. More on this shortly. The geography and topology of the island is straightforward in many ways, with the Garajonay National Park at the top and centre of the conical island, and the various towns and villages spread mostly on lower slopes and the coasts. Driving on Gomera is relatively easy despite the terrain, as there are few roads, making it difficult to get lost, and which, while they are very twisty, are in great condition and generally comfortably wide enough or have frequent passing places. There are many tunnels to manage the hills. We would recommend hiring a car for a couple of reasons specific to our experience. Firstly, the views from the roads themselves, and especially the many miradors or viewpoints signalled by these signs, are one of the best parts of visiting the island, and we spent quite some time jumping in and out of the car to take in the views, and sometimes walking a few hundred metres along the start of one of the many trails. Here are a few examples of what we saw. Secondly, we found the weather was difficult to predict and differed in different parts of the island on a daily basis, so the flexibility to adjust our plans to avoid the rain was especially helpful. We spent our first 4 nights on Gomera in Las Rosas in the north of the island at a lovely Airbnb, and on the first day after our aborted attempt to walk to the top of the island due to the weather, we returned to the National Park Visitor Centre in Huego de Bolas, to this largely circular walk, which I will link below. The weather was much better here. The free visitor centre has various educational displays, including a 10-minute video about the island, a small botanical garden and a cafe, and is well worth a visit. They also provide guidance on the various walking routes. We set off walking gently downhill. So far this morning this has been a relatively easy walk down from the visitor centre to Mirador do Abrante. but it's about to get a whole lot different as we are going down there. There is some sort of path down the cliff. Quite what it's going to be like, we're going to find out shortly. So that 1.4 kilometres took us an hour to come down that cliff, but we've made it and we're now in the town of Gogula. The path down the cliff had not been so difficult, although care required and maybe not great in wet weather. We took welcome refreshment at the bar Restaurante Almeida, which gave us a spring in our step as we set off through the pretty old town of Agulo, returning via a different route. The walk back up was not so steep as the cliff we had walked down, but it was still a steady climb. I had trouble keeping up. This walk could be done starting from either village and clockwise or anti-clockwise. There is some discussion on all trails about that, but we were happy with the way round we did it. Late afternoon when we got back to the car, having had a great day after something of a false start. Day 2 started similar to day 1 after a dry start in Las Rosas. So for the second day in a row, our walk in the rainforest has been curtailed by rain. It's absolutely belting down and we've decided moment for sure we are not getting out of the car. We decided to head towards San Sebastian, but then took a detour down another spectacular winding road to Playa Santiago near the airport. We actually parked in Ticina where there is a golf course and walked down to Playa Santiago. We enjoyed lunch in one of the small number of restaurants and bars along the front. It did start to rain again, unfortunately. We headed back up to the car and made our way to San Sebastian. San Sebastian is by far the biggest place in La Gomera. It's quite pretty in places and has a decent number of shops and restaurants. There's a 15th century tower, the Torre del Conde, in a park of the same name on the waterfront. There's the Church of the Assumption, where Christopher Columbus and his men allegedly prayed before setting off on their journey of discovery in 1492. It was a useful way of spending a wet afternoon, but probably best visited on arrival or departure from the port, rather than as a special trip if you were staying elsewhere on the island. On our return journey, the mist was swirling around the Roque de Agando, but cleared as sunset arrived, offering us a fabulous view which brought our day 2 to an end. So this is day 3 of driving up into the rainforest in the rain. This time we've decided to actually get out and walk up to the top of Mount Garajonay by the shortest route possible, which is about 1.5 kilometres. So hopefully we won't get too wet. The parking for this short ascent to the summit is called El Contadero. A more popular route to walk to Alto de Garajonay. It's a 10-kilometre figure-of-8 circuit starting at the Laguna Grande Visitor Centre, and I've linked this walk in the description. So we made it to the top of Mount Garajonay at the third attempt with beautiful weather, as it turns out when we get here. So we're really happy about that, and we can see in every direction of the island. It gives you a really good overview of the island, so definitely a must do if you get the weather. Did you enjoy the Alto de Garajonay, Kim?
I really do. And such an easy hike.
Yes, it helps when you park as close as possible.
You could stay there for a long time because everything's changing constantly. The clouds, the sun, the view.
These are basically dandelions along the walkway, but they certainly give a lovely splash of colour everywhere we go. And they're massive, absolutely massive. Our garden could look like this if we left the dandelions grow. We returned to the car and went for lunch in a restaurant at the Laguna Grande Visitor Centre. Next we headed for a walk in part of the dense green laurel forest which crowns the centre rim of the island. These forests are a signature of the Garajonay National Park, and there are many walks in the park which showcase these ancient woodlands which are now found in very few places in the world. The route we took was a 4.7 kilometre, mostly easy circular one through the forest, and included the small chapel of Ermita de Lourdes. There are picnic tables and water available here. There's a number of similar routes available in the area, including the hamlet of El Cedro, which is very near to the start. I said the route was mostly easy. The only exception was the last 200 metres up this set of steps. Okay, we just came back to the car park, but the last bit of that walk, the way we did, absolute killer. 200 metres straight uphill. Doesn't sound like much, not especially convinced it's 200 metres either, but it was hard going. The rest of it was really easy, but enjoyable walk. We headed back to the apartment through more forests and more fabulous views. The next day we were moving from Las Rosas to Valle Gran Rey. On the way we took a short walk on the spur of the moment down one of the tracks shortly before Vallehermoso. We went through Vallehermoso, which is the biggest town in the north of the island, and will probably make a good base with more shops and restaurants and good access to walks. We made a quick detour to see the small beach, then left it behind and on towards Valle Gran Rey. We round through more laurel forests near Chorros de Espina, and then at Aurora a viewpoint which gives a good idea of the spectacular valley to come. As you wind down the valley, there are again numerous viewpoints to enjoy. We were actually staying in El Guru, which is 3 kilometers from the beach. We had a lovely walk into the town, which has a great vibe with great sunset, street music, and relatively to other places on the island, a lot of restaurants and bars. We ended up listening to a fantastic flamenco performance in the La Gomera lounge, which has different types of music every night. Unfortunately, I caught food poisoning that evening, and the next couple of days were pretty much completely wiped out. Kim was able to enjoy the balcony on the apartment more than me. There are some great walks from Garajonay and in the surrounding area, and I'll provide the links to the ones we were thinking about below. However, on our last day, with me still not 100%, we took on a short walk, leaving from our apartment and up the ravine or barranco to the Aurora waterfall. It's only a couple of kilometres each way, but with 190 metres of elevation gain, and it turned out to be quite a bit more exciting than we imagined. The path follows a stream up the ravine, crossing and recrossing the river with stepping stones, at least some of the time, and lots of branches to clamber over and under. There's some scrambling required, and in a couple of places there are even ropes provided. At the end of the trail there's a nice waterfall and space to stop for a picnic or a snack. All in all, a very enjoyable 2 or 3 hours, and we saw a few families enjoying the walk too. Return is via the same route, but at least this time we knew what to expect. This was our last activity of the trip, and we returned on the ferry to Tenerife the following day. We enjoyed our visit to Gomera very much despite my illness, and yes, I am very much better now, thank you for asking. As long as you enjoy walking, then 5 to 10 days would be a good duration for a visit, and staying part of the time in the north or east of the island and sometime in Garajonay worked for us and has been suggested by other travellers. It's a relatively inexpensive place for food and drink and accommodation. There are lots of resources for walks, and it's worth doing some research. This book by Rother is one option. Of course, there's all trails, and there is a nice map provided by the visitor centre, and I've linked to a PDF copy of that online. We've also linked to some walks that we completed and some of the walks that we would have completed if we had a bit more time or better weather. And finally, here are 10 must-do activities on Gomera based on our experiences when we were there and our research before we went. Firstly, walk from Agulo to Huegas de Bolas and explore the visitor centre and the Mirador de Abrante. Walk to the top of Mount Garajonay from the La Grande Visitor Centre, or as we did, the short walk from El Contadero. Go on a boat trip to Los Organos. This is something we didn't do, there was no boat availability, but it's certainly well worth looking into. Spend a few hours in San Sebastian on your arrival or on your departure. Watch the sunset in Garajonay and explore the bars and street music there. If fitness and experience allows, try the Loop Roque de Oilla, I guess that is. Again, not something we did, but looks like a fantastic walk. Read the reviews before you go, it's a tough one. Visit Vallehermoso and try one of the walks there. We've recommended one in the description. Try one of many walks down or up Garajonay, depending on your fitness level. Drive all of the roads and take a good look at all of the lookouts, especially those around Roque de Agando, and take a walk in at least one of the cedar forests in the national park. They're the top 10 things that we would recommend. We hope you've enjoyed this video and found something useful. If you have, please do like and subscribe for future content, and to be honest, to give us a bit of encouragement. Wherever you're travelling next, I hope you have a great time. Until the next one, goodbye.